When things are calm, do you actually feel relieved, or do you immediately start looking for something that could go wrong? Have you noticed that peace doesn't always feel peaceful in your body? What do you do when life finally gets quiet? Do you stretch into that quiet, or do you start getting antsy and making yourself busy? Today, we're going to talk about how sneaky trauma responses can be, how they show up even when nothing is wrong, and how the problems in life are not always what they seem to be. Now, I want you to think about the last time that your life slowed down or got quiet. When there were no fires, you weren't dealing with any major conflicts, you weren't behind or late on something, there wasn't some existential crisis, you didn't have a bunch of big gripes, things were better than okay, things were pretty good. What did you do then? Did you relax? Did you stretch into that openness and quiet and calm and flow? Or were you like most people that I witness and you didn't relax into it? You actually started looking around for what was wrong or what could go wrong. Maybe you reorganized a drawer, or you checked your phone like 10 times in 1 hour, or you started replaying a conversation that you had 3 days ago that was pretty inconsequential, has zero relevance for you today, but you just keep thinking about it. Or you think about something that you shouldn't be worried about, but you just worry about it anyways. Or maybe you pick a fight, right? Maybe things are going really well in your relationship, and then you just find, quote unquote, find something to be annoyed at. Or maybe your week just finally let up, right? You could take a breath. But then you added like another yoga class or another social thing or a work thing to your schedule because having nothing to do just makes you feel a little anxious. Now, if you were like, oh shit, that's me, then this episode is for you, friend. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about why peace stresses you out and why you create problems and busyness and tension when things are chill. Welcome to The Simple Source, a paradigm-shifting space where self-love, healing, spirituality, and personal growth are redefined. If you've been told healing takes years, that abundance must be attracted, or that transformation requires struggle, you haven't been told the truth. I'm Villines, a certified, trauma-informed holistic coach, author, and spiritual guide. After healing myself from chronic conditions, complex trauma, and lack, not by following traditional frameworks, but by creating my own, I'm now teaching you to love, heal, and free yourself, mind, body, and soul, so you can reclaim your highest health, happiness, and potential with joy and ease. Each week, we go beyond surface-level self-help and into the real mechanics of transformation. If the traditional paths to healing and spirituality haven't produced the changes you want in the life you desire, you're in the right place. You were never meant to struggle or wait for what is already yours. Let's get started with today's episode. You may be like, who gets stressed out by peace? But that's actually what's happening for a lot of people. And not because you're a drama queen or there's something wrong with you or you're just like, quote unquote, attracting chaos. It's because your body doesn't know how to handle calm calmly. And for many people's nervous system, calm is not relaxing, is what that means. It's activating. It activates a trauma response. And this is one of the ways that people move through daily life in a personal trauma response, because it just shows up everywhere, right? It's not just the obsessive phone checking, the doom scrolling, the picking fights for no reason. It's also always being late. It's also always having a lot going on. It's also turning a simple 3-step task into like a 10-step production. It's the not being able to just do one thing without running like 5 disaster scenarios in your mind while you just do the one thing. And people will call that being ambitious or, I'm just popular or a social butterfly or anxiety or being intense or a perfectionist, someone who just has a lot on their plate. And sure, some of that might be true on the surface, but underneath those behaviors, those patterns is actually a trauma response that's driving it. It's the body getting activated again and again and just reinforcing stress because that is all that it knows. So I did a whole episode about trauma responses called Break Free from Trauma by Understanding Your Trauma Responses that you should listen to if you have not, that really goes deep into what trauma responses are. So we'll go into that in a little bit later, but you should listen to that episode as well. But people do the same thing with healing that I was talking about earlier. People don't just move through life in a trauma response, they move through their healing in the same way. And so then, of course, that means they're not healing, right? People turn their own healing into like the most difficult thing. Like it has to be this massive, like devastating, lifelong excavation, or it's not healing. You have to have several dark nights of the soul seasons, read, 20 books, journal until your hand cramps. Heard that one several times, and process that same wound from a gazillion different angles. And still you feel like you could do more. And some of that is real healing, clearly, obviously, not to discount like the effort and the result, but some of it is also your unresolved trauma, just pretending to be personal growth. You're making healing harder than it needs to be because ease doesn't feel trustworthy to you yet. That's what's going on. That's why your trauma responses keep firing and why problems keep surfacing when things are actually chill or could be easy. So what's happening when things slow down or get quiet and then you overanalyze, you overcomplicate, you overextend yourself, overdo, you make shit harder than it needs to be. What's happening is, first of all, let me just say that there's a difference between something actually being wrong and then your body reacting as if like something is wrong. Those are two different things. And for people who grew up in chaotic, high-stress environments, for whatever reason, and or with a lot of unpredictability, or any environment really where calm was not normal or common, then your body learned that peace is not normal. It's not a normal resting state, which means that peace was unfamiliar to your body, and what is unfamiliar to your body is innately dangerous. And if you couple that with being conditioned to believe that peace is earned through hard work, through struggling, or you learn that peace comes at a cost, then of course that danger, that sense of danger gets reinforced. And so that's why as an adult, when things get quiet or they get chill, you don't really relax into it. That old trauma just gets activated. And that's why you start scanning for shit to go wrong, why you brace, why you start anticipating, right, something to go wrong. That's hypervigilance. That is a trauma response. And that response means that your body has not gotten the message in a way that it can understand, that it can stand down, essentially, that it doesn't need to stay alert, to be activated and moving and doing and being guarded all the time. And since your body is operating from unresolved, unreleased trauma, that response pattern just never gets released either. And so as an adult, that's why you're still constantly checking your phone when nothing is going on, right? Why you feel uneasy on a Sunday with nothing to do, so you just fill it with a bunch of errands, or you read a negative tone in the text that didn't really have a negative tone, or why, you instigate issues in your relationship when it starts to go good because you are suspicious on an unconscious, subconscious level. And hypervigilance is only one version of this, friend, because people turn peace into problems in all sorts of ways. So there are 4 main types of trauma responses. There's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And most people tend to have one that's dominant for certain situations. But a trauma response is a response to the activation. So, you can have a combination. You should listen to the whole trauma response episode to do a deep dive. But you'll likely recognize yourself in all of these in one way or another. So if you tend toward fight, you're the person who's just irritable for no reason. Everyone is annoying to you. You often unconsciously pick fights or arguments. You tend to make small things into big things. You need friction and tension because your body feels that as a home state and doesn't know what to do without stress and tension. All right, so if you tend toward flight, you're the one who's always behind. You're always rushing. You're always overwhelmed. You're overbooked because you're juggling, 10 things at once and not really finishing any of them well or at all. You're not actually busy because your life demands you to be, here, there, and everywhere. You're busy because slowing down feels like death to you. And yeah, that's stressful. So again, your body's home state is stress. And if you tend toward freeze, you procrastinate, you avoid, you don't finish things, and then you live inside that panic, that ick, that shame and consequence of not completing your goals, which of course creates that exact stress that your body is used to and expects. So again, maintaining stress is the home state. And then if you tend toward fawn, you're the people pleaser, right? Who says yes when you mean no. You please everyone but yourself. So you overcommit, you tend to other people's needs, and then you live with like near constant resentment that you hide to appear pleasant because your life is not yours. Your needs are chronically unmet. And again, that's a very stressful state to live in. So as you can see, trauma responses are just different variations of the same stress response and that same recoil at peace because it's unfamiliar. And then thus it's dangerous. It's the same wound, essentially. And so when you live from trauma responses daily for years or decades, that means that you are not living as your true self, your authentic self, your highest self, because you're living in survival mode. You're not living from your soul truth. And then when those trauma responses run your life for long enough, right, when you're disconnected from your soul, from your authentic self for long enough, you forget who your true self even is. And then you start to think that that survival version of you who's always late, always overwhelmed, has everything going on, can't sit still, is reorganizing this and that. You think that that version is the real you. So you end up believing and then saying things like, well, I'm just an anxious person. I've always been this way. I just work best under pressure. Or I'm just someone who overthinks everything. Or I'm just bad at relationships. Or I just like having a lot of things going on. And those statements feel true. They feel like, yeah, this is who I am because my life has proven that I am this way. But the truth is the real you, the true you, the you who is not unconsciously repeating survival stress responses from decades ago, the real you is not attached to being overworked, to being silently resentful or anxious or always struggling and stressing about something. What's attached to that stress is your nervous system, is a trauma-conditioned false identity that feels familiar because it's been in operation, for a long-ass time, but it's not your actual identity. There's a difference between something being familiar and something being central and unequivocally true on a soul level, which is the level that, matters most because your authentic self is your soul self. Your authentic self is not your trauma response self. And I teach this over and over again in my Source membership program. It's so fundamental because the conclusion and the confusion that people operate from all the time is that their false self is their true self. People just move through life totally disconnected from their authentic selves because they think that they're stressed. They think that they are their pain. They identify with their traumas. But you are not your stress. You are not your pain. You are not your trauma. But people live with the stress and the pain and the unresolved trauma for so long, they become so comfortable with that, it truly becomes a default home base feeling that they then mistake chronic stress for what they call drive, or hyper responsibility for what they call maturity, overthinking for depth, difficulty with importance or value. But those are not your authentic self's personality traits. Those are trauma responses that got repeated so often for so long that you just stopped questioning if all that constant stress actually served you and was actually the truth of who you really are. Now, trauma responses are real. Of course they are. So this is not an invalidation of them. How they influence you, how they shape your body, your nervous system, your beliefs, your behavior, that's totally real. So I'm not negating your experiences or your beliefs, but I am saying that conditioning is not the same thing as true on a soul level. What's learned through repetition is not the same thing as soul level essential truth that needs no reinforcement. So there's a version of you underneath all of that survival attachment and those false identities and those masks that you have not had real access to because you have been essentially blind to that version of you because you've just been operating in a way that makes them inaccessible. Now, that is not your fault, but that version of you underneath the survival patterns and the trauma responses, your authentic self, your true self, that version of you deserves to be acknowledged, to be seen, to be given a chance to be known by you in full. That's the whole point of why your soul chose this life anyways. And honoring your authentic self and to stop identifying with the constant stress and the problems and the trauma, that's you choosing to honor your soul, your innate vitality, which is in essence you honoring your life. And that is your responsibility. No one else can honor your soul, your life, your true essence in the way that you can. And so if the same types of problems keep showing up in your life, the same kind of relationship drama, the same overwhelming shit, the conflicts, the frustrations, the feelings of things never working out, you have to be willing to look at what is consistent across all of it, right? What's the common denominator here, friend? And that's you, right? It's me. I'm the constant in my life. You are the constant in your life. Now, this is not about blaming yourself. No. We do not blame. Blame serves nothing in healing. Blame actually prevents you from healing. What I'm saying, the point that I'm trying to make is a point of empowerment about ownership of yourself and of your life, about understanding that you actually have all the power when you stop pointing fingers, when you stop blaming other people, because again, blame is a poo-poo practice, right? When you're trying to heal and actually be present in your life. So when you stop deflecting and projecting onto other people and you turn inward, you get self-curious to self-love, not to self-crucify. That's when all of those repetitive problems and that constant stress is going to innately transform because you're getting to the source. So turning inward, again, is not to self-condemn, it's to self-empower because there's nothing wrong with you. You don't deserve to be stuck in survival and stress and struggling for your whole life. And you're not cursed and you're not behind. What's underneath the persistent problems that keep popping up, whatever form they take, is an unresolved pattern in you that is unconsciously recreating that pattern because that pattern wants to resolve. Your brain and your body don't want to be stuck in survival and stress and struggle mode. Like they really, really do not. They can't optimize their own health and functionality that way. So what remains unresolved in you, your traumas, your trauma responses, they're going to continue to surface because that is the nature of how your brain and your body and your subconscious and your nervous system work. So instead of letting that reflex to blame your problems on other people or your circumstances or bad luck or bad timing or bad juju or whatever, that everything in life is hard mentality is so pervasive and it seeps into everything. You have a choice. You can accept what is because it is. The sky is blue. Resisting the fact that the sky is blue is futile. The brain functions the way that it functions. So resisting that your subconscious dictates 95% of your life is pretty futile. That's just your design. So you can accept what is, and in your acceptance, you can then stop fighting with your own life and your own problems. And you then can start shaping your life from the driver's seat, and not in that force of willpower way where you're just trying to hard work and muscle your way through everything, but through real self-love and self-empowerment, through softness. And yeah, some people are difficult. Some situations are shitty. Sometimes life is just fucked up. But when problems are patterns, when the same stuff keeps repeating across different people, different cities, different decades, different jobs, that's not circumstance anymore. That's a trauma response with its hand on the wheel of your choices and your reactions and your behavior and your actions, all of it, without you seeing it clearly for what it is. And now we're not going to blame your trauma responses or your traumas either. Again, blame serves zero purpose. Your trauma responses have just been trying to keep you alive in that familiar zone. They don't deserve any shade. There's nothing and no one to blame. The power move is the self-loving move, not the self-blaming or the self-shaming move. Because you can continue to abandon your power by thinking that shit happens to you, that relationships and situations happen to you, and that problems happen to you, or you can reclaim your power by turning within, turning toward your body. Those past versions of you who only knew stress, and loving them. And loving them requires that you take responsibility for what is you, what's inside of you, your own body state, and those past wounded versions of you. And that ownership is not a burden, friend. It is a liberation, because then you are at the mercy of no one. Then you are fully in command of yourself. And when you are in command of yourself, you have real choices then. You can then choose ease instead of stress. You can then choose ease instead of struggling. But so many people reject ease as a choice because ease has been threatening, right? Because it's unfamiliar. And because ease is not part of that identity that you have assumed in constant survival mode. It's not part of the survival pattern that you have been living in for decades. Because if your whole life and your sense of self has been constructed around difficulty and stress and hard work, then peace is, it's going to feel like losing a part of yourself. And that's what creates the resistance too. And I want to talk more about ease because ease does not land well for a lot of people. On the surface, people are like, yeah, sure, I want life to be easy. But then underneath that are judgments, limiting beliefs, suspicion. A lot of people hear the word ease and they translate it into laziness or passivity or not caring or not working hard enough. And that translation is trauma conditioning talking. That's not truth. Ease is not the absence of effort. What ease is the absence of unnecessary suffering around the effort. Should I say that again for the back row? I'll say it one more time. Ease is not the absence of effort. It is the absence of unnecessary suffering around the effort. You don't need to suffer to be deserving. You don't need to suffer to heal, to be successful, to be loved, to exist. And ease also does not mean doing jack shit and floating through life on a yacht, all tanned and snacking all day. That's not ease either. That's luxury. And I think people sometimes conflate the two. What ease really is a deep fucking sigh from being satisfied that you flowed instead of force. Ease is clarity. It is presence. It's your body feeling safe enough and regulated enough to have the capacity to make decisions aligned with your authentic self and your values, instead of automatically reacting from vigilance and stress. It's healing that progresses because it's simple and enjoyable instead of being a heavy burden. It's engaging in relationships that let you breathe instead of making you brace. And what so many people do not understand about ease is that your brain and your body prefer ease. They crave it. Your healing, your health, your ability to think and learn are all optimized in ease. Not stress, Stress literally shuts all of that down. But ease tells your brain, tells your body, I'm safe. We can optimize well-being. And that is not my opinion. That is your physiology. That is the natural, innate way that you were born and that you continue to exist inside a human body. But so many people have been conditioned to trust struggle and stress more than ease, more than well-being, to believe that if it's not hard, it's not real, it's not valuable because you didn't earn it through struggling, through hard work, through suffering. That if it's not painful, you're not growing. That if you're comfortable, you're probably being lazy or irresponsible or you're missing something. And that is one of the deepest distortions that people maintain and they just pass around. The moralization of suffering and struggling. The belief that hardship is how you deserve a good life. And even saying all of that is just like icky in my mouth. It's so distorted. Struggle is not where your truth lives. Struggle is where survival lives. Big difference. So the real move now is not learning how to get better at struggling and stressing, which is what I see a lot of people doing by, just adding a ton of shit to their life, more this, more that. The real move, the most empowering and self-loving move, is learning how to stop unconsciously creating stress and problems when they are not required. And that is an in-the-body shift, not a mindset shift. Your mind is not the one turning peace into problems. It's a somatic pattern. So if throughout this episode you were like, damn, I do that. I create stress where it doesn't need to exist, and I have been calling my trauma responses my personality for years. Well, first, let me just say that I feel you because I've been there. Most people also been there. Second thing is, you're not stuck like this, which is very important to understand. And third, you're not going to transform and resolve this by muscling your way through it with more willpower or more processing or more, trying harder by stressing, basically. You can't stop stressing by stressing more. So let's not do the ridiculous. Let's stop doing the thing that hasn't worked and start doing the thing that does. Because you cannot mindset your way out of something that your body is holding on to like your life depends on it. Like literally. That's not a symbolic sentence. So I want you to join me in Liberation from Struggle, which is my new course designed to help you with this exact problem, which is, unconsciously creating problems where there is no need for difficulty. I said unconsciously. That's the key. You're not doing this consciously. You're not consciously going, oh, let me make my life shittier and more difficult and more dramatic. You're not doing that consciously. This is an unconscious, in your nervous system, somatic thing. Because a life that is defined by some degree of constant stress and struggle, that's not a mind like not thinking the right thoughts thing. That's a body pattern, somatic conditioning thing. It lives in your nervous system and it has to be acknowledged and released at that level, not just understood cognitively. And so my course, Liberation from Struggle, it's not about helping you be better at stress. It's about helping your body actually stop treating stress and struggle as the baseline. So that ease is not something that you judge, fight, or feel like you have to earn or convince yourself you deserve. It's just how you live. And from that place, your authentic self has a real opportunity to be known, to be lived. And your relationships, your health, your decisions, your capacity to receive what you want in your life, all of it finally has an opportunity to be the norm. And not because you became a different person fundamentally, but because your body just stopped bracing against the truth of who and what you are, which is not someone who survives through life, but someone who is actually free to thrive in your life. So here's your action step for the week. Here's what I want you to do to stop reinforcing all the unnecessary problems in your life and to start healing with ease. This is going to be super simple and super meaningful. So I want you to pick one problem that keeps showing up, that thorn in your side, that same issue, that same gripe. Just pick one, and whichever one comes to mind first, that's the one, right? Don't negotiate with your intuition. let your intuition speak and trust it. So maybe that's you're always late. Maybe you're always overwhelmed. Maybe you're always overthinking, or you're always dealing with people who annoy you or frustrate you. Maybe you don't finish what you start. Whatever it is, you know the thing, right? It's the thing that you're just so fucking tired of. Now, instead of asking yourself, why does this keep happening to me? Which is the question that you have probably been asking yourself for a long ass time. I want you to ask yourself, what trauma response might be running me right now in this area of my life? Is it fight? Is it flight, freeze, and or fawn? So that's going to help you identify what's possibly your dominant trauma response, okay? And then I want you to ask yourself, what does that version of myself need to feel safe? And then the answer to that is going to help you identify the need that's not being met, that is activating the trauma response. And then finally, this is the last part, the last question is, what easy thing, mind you, I said easy, not like a complicated, I thought about this for 2 days and I made a 2-column list thing. What easy thing can I do to meet that need for myself with love? That's going to help you associate ease with love. And that could be a hug, that could be screaming into a pillow, that could be ignoring a text, that could be letting the weeds get weedy and messy. Whatever it is, let it be easy, no stress, and do it with love. That's key, no fuck you energy. You're teaching your body, you're teaching yourself that stress does not have to be the dominating energy, and that ease can start to feel familiar in a small and loving way. And that is how easy and simple transforming into a minimal problem life can be. We're conditioned to let the mind just run amok, to overthink, to analyze, to normalize anxiety, to silence our bodies, right? To normalize that everything in life is hard. And so having problems all the time is just like par for the course in modern society. But you have a choice. You can unsubscribe from that distortion, friend, because you are sovereign. What's normal for the masses is not equivalent to truth. So just because chronic stress is normalized doesn't mean that you have to sign off on a life that is constantly draining you, that dims your glow, that dims your magic and your genius. And contrary to popular belief, your soul did not choose this life to move through an onslaught of problems in Earth School. That teaching is a part of the distortion. Struggle is not the pathway. Struggle is not a test of your worth. It is not a block. You are not blocked. And it does not make you deep or profound or strong. Yeah, I said it. It makes you caught in conditioning that if you think about it, did you ever consciously agree to it? So your talent, your contributions, your brilliance, your purpose, the love that you have to give, that's all unconditional. That's the truth. That's part of your sovereignty, because your authentic self, your soul self, does not need conditions to exist, to express, to matter. Your problems are not prerequisites that prove to the universe or to your partner or to your mom or dad or to your boss that you belong and that you are deserving. That's old trauma speaking. And now it's time for your true self to have a voice. And let that voice speak ease, friend. Because allowing ease is allowing self-love. Because only in ease does your body actually relax, open up, and activate its innate healing capabilities, and optimize its health, optimize its clarity and mental acuity. Only in ease does your brain get clear and sharp. Only in ease does your health stop being hard-won and start being a natural outcome of mind-body-soul coherence, meaning when you come into alignment with your whole true self. Because well-being is not something you fight for. It is something you remember. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope this episode awakened you, inspired you, and reminded you of what's possible when you love, heal, and free yourself and reclaim your highest truth and power. If this show has transformed or enlightened your self-love, growth, and healing journey, please like, save, and share this episode and leave a positive review on Apple or Spotify. And subscribe to be reminded of new episodes. Your support is deeply appreciated and truly helps this show so much. And if today's episode resonated with you, don't stop here. Go deeper. My book, Unconditional, You Are Perfect As You Are, expands on these teachings and gives you the missing framework about self-love that no one is talking about. So get your copy today to start reading and loving yourself more. And if you're ready for the ultimate healing journey with daily instruction and guidance from me, I'd love to see you inside the Source membership, the only holistic and comprehensive step-by-step self-healing program that is proven to work. Remember, you were never meant to struggle or wait for what is already yours. It's time to claim everything you want and more. All the links are in the show notes. I'll see you next time.